Hey guys, Jim here. I want to share with you now a follow-up video to a video I made just a couple of months ago where I introduced many of you to Steve Skiff with my cohort video, which was this little bad boy right here. Now, when I did that video, I mentioned a couple of very specific things. Number one, that I found the maker to be very exciting, and I was excited to be able to bring out somebody who did not have closed books. He was at about a 3-month wait list at the time when I was talking about this. I also told you, while we were talking about the cohort, that you should go look at his website and look at a model called the Accomplice, that I was going to be getting one soon, and I thought everybody would love it. Well, two things resulted from that. Number one, I did get my Accomplice. This was the one that I actually had commissioned with Steve. And then I found this one when I was at the Knife Makers Guild show just a couple months ago. So I grabbed that first, even though I knew this was on the way, because it was such a great price. The other thing that happened was, after making that video, within a couple of days, Steve went from a 3-month wait to, when he mentioned yesterday in an email, he's around 20 months. So it's really still not too bad, but I'm going to tell you right now, this knife has more mass appeal to those of you that subscribe to my channel than perhaps this does. So I'm kind of thinking the wait might get worse. Now let me start with the first Accomplice that I got and just kind of go over it a little bit and then show you some of the differences between it and the one that he made for me. Now, first off, this is a larger looking knife than it really is. Overall, it's just under 8.5 inches. And the blade length is actually 3.5 inches, but it plays a lot longer than that, and I think it's because of the shape of the bolster. When you go from here to the tip of the blade, it's 3.5 inches. But because you have so much of the blade exposed up here and down here, it appears to be more like a 3 3/4 inch blade, but it really is 3.5. Now, first thing I want to tell you about this one is this is not on bearings like my other one is. This is just done on washers. He has done such an amazing job that I almost can't tell the difference between the two. Let's take a nice look at the blade, which is a perfect hand rub satin with a little bit of a high polish to it. Then you'll notice the mirror polishing on the spine. Nice clean work. This was a used knife when I purchased it from the dealer, Scott Gentili, at the Guild show, so it's not in perfect condition, and that's fine. It's actually going to be going to Steve next week for a little bit of spa treatment, just to make sure it's 100% perfect. Then we have nice, clean, matte bead blasted titanium bolster. M2 scale, which is a composite material which actually features titanium inside. These swirls that you see and these interesting little, I don't know what the little flecks are, but in part of that composite is this gold titanium that's inside of the material. It's really freaking cool. It really is. The liners are polished and done in a really nice blue anodize. Come back around to this side, everything's the same, and a standard bent spring clip. Now the differences are he no longer does the spring clip, it's a fully sculpted 3D clip. The titanium liners are now thicker on the newer variation, and he also uses bearings instead of washers. But other than that, they're the same construction. I love the shape of this handle. The ergonomics, it feels so good in the hand. Somebody asked me when they saw pictures of this on my Instagram what this huge notch was. They're like, well, it looks like it's for a thumb stud, but there's no thumb stud. That's actually a very large cutout so you can more easily access the lock. So there you go. It is super fast, incredibly smooth, and fires perfectly every time. I'm going to tell you right now, even though I'm new to Steve's work, I am so incredibly impressed by it that I consider him one of my absolute favorite makers at this point. And I don't usually elevate somebody to that level in my mind or in my collection this quickly. But his finished work is quite simply some of the best I've ever seen. Now I'm talking about when you're holding knives made by guys like Jeremy Marsh and Todd Rexford and Todd Begg on his full customs, Stan Wilson, Frank Fisher, that super upper echelon of the tactical folder makers. His fit and finish is right there with it. Beautiful hand finishing, hand polishing in all the right areas. Everything is finished on these knives inside and out. They're truly remarkable. As a matter of fact, I love this one so much that you guys know I just did a top 10 video not too long ago of my top 10 favorite knives. Not only is this now in my top 10, this was received after I did that video, unfortunately, but I put this in my top 5. Now that's huge for me, because really my top 5 doesn't change that much. You guys know my number 1 is my Frank Fisher Battle. In there is my Sebastian Larson Enigma Overkill. In there also is my Big Red. There are certain knives that have achieved a certain degree of perfection that they don't really get bumped out of place. This is in my top 5. This is a knife that I have a hard time not carrying. So once again we have an Accomplice. As you see, you have thicker titanium liners. This one is done in full Mokuti for the bolsters. Just gorgeous. I love how he puts his name here too. And I love how the shape of the blade perfectly accents the shape of the bolsters. There is the other bolster. He's also using a Steve Kelly custom titanium pivot, which he is anodized to blend in almost perfectly with the colors and patterns of the Mokuti. And then there is the Mokuti pocket clip, 3D sculpted. Just gorgeous. Then he's taken and done a nice high satin on the titanium liners, blued them, and jeweled them all up and down on the inside. There we go, that's a better shot of it. Beautifully jeweled. This is a very decorative, dressy piece. He's gone blue to purple in the titanium. He's done a full-on purple in the standoffs. He's picked some beautiful complementary colors. Beautifully contoured the carbon fiber. As you notice, this carbon fiber is fully polished. Not something you often see. Actually, the only other polished carbon fiber scales I've ever had were from Jesse Jarrah's. That's it. Everything else has always been a nice matte finish. This is a dressier knife. It really, really looks good with that polishing. But everything is beautifully contoured to fit comfortably in the hand. As you see, all the materials fit together completely flawlessly. It's just, there's such a wow factor to this knife, I can't even describe. Again, with the satin, hand rub satin finish. I love the aggressive blade profile. I think this is such a sexy, sexy design. Mirror polishing again on the spine of the blade. My fingerprints are on it. Show you the lockup here. He believes in a very secure lockup. We actually discussed this not too long ago on the phone. Early lockup is fine, nothing wrong with that, but he actually has like a little groove that this just drops right into, so that it doesn't walk over any further. You're not going to get any lock rock or anything silly out of it. By the way, there is a choil there. That's why I didn't cut my thumb when I did that. There's a little choil there so you can choke up on it. But it's not very pronounced. You almost don't realize it's there. That's how brilliantly this knife is designed. I'm constantly more and more impressed every time I pick this knife up. It just doesn't get more perfect than this. The feel, the overall design, the detent, the action, the satin finish, the coloring of the Mokuti, the anodizing of the titanium, the contouring of the frame, the fit and finish, the hand satin, the hand polishing. This is as perfect as a knife can be. Now here's the more exciting news. Forget the exotic materials here. This was bought from a dealer with a dealer making profit. $650. You guys might remember the cohort I got in for under $500. I have less invested in these two knives than the majority of the knives that I own individually spent on one knife. And I'm telling you right now, there are makers out there. Forget secondary market prices, because that's such, you don't know where that's going to go. Just speaking for direct makers prices. There are knives out there that will cost twice what this does. That does not have the attention to detail. That does not have the level of refinement. And that's very, very important when you're spending a good amount of money on something. It's the level of refinement. Sometimes we want that badass, raw-looking, industrial-looking knife. I'm not knocking that. I have plenty of those myself. You've seen them. But when somebody's able to achieve this level of detail, this level of perfection, and not charge you an arm and a leg, I have to call it out. It's a big, big, big deal. This is in my top 5. You guys have seen the knives that I own and have owned. Of all the knives I've ever owned, not just what I currently own, of what I've ever owned in my life, this is in my top 5. It's breathtaking. It's up to you whether you like the design or not. I happen to love the shape of this knife. But the quality, the fit and finish, the obvious attention to detail paid to every teeny, tiny part of this knife is just mind-blowing. I'm going to tell you right now, I would gladly pay double what he charges for his knives now that I've handled them. You guys know there's really only one maker that I'm on his books forever, for every single model knife that he's ever going to make. And that's Dustin Turpin. You guys know Dustin's level of work. You guys also know that I'm pretty much always going to have every new Frank Fisher. And that's really it. There are a lot of makers I really love, but I don't really want to own everything that they ever make. I don't have the, maybe, not so much the confidence, but maybe I just don't know that they're always going to make something in a design that I'm really going to appreciate. I'm going to put Steve Skiff in that category. Obviously, he would have to allow me to be able to do that, but it's like I want to own everything he ever makes. Period. I'm rarely this impressed, to the point where I'm tongue-tied, where I almost don't know what to say. And you know what? He's a real cool cat. He's real humble. Spoken to him a few times on the phone. We email every now and then. Very, very humble. His wife is just a doll. She obviously helps a lot with the business. And it's funny because she actually had a lot of input on this particular knife. When we had concepted this particular build, it was actually going to be Damasteel bolsters. And as he was kind of approaching the end of everything, He was talking to his wife, and she says, "You know what? It just needs more color. It needs more of a pop." He's like, "You know what? You're right." So he scrapped the Damasteel bolster idea, which we will do at some point because I was really stoked about that idea. So he scrapped the Damasteel bolster idea and threw Mokuti on there. And it's perfect. And you guys know me. That falls right in line with the kind of stuff that I love. I just got a full Mokuti front and back frame lock from Daryl Ralph. It's amazing. I'll do a video on it soon. I've got my Dub Impact that's full Timascus, which is the same thing. Even my ring. This is my backup to my wedding ring. Whenever my wedding ring is a whole bunch of diamonds, if it's a carat of diamonds. And I've got more invested in that ring than I had in the first 5 cars that I ever owned. So sometimes I want to wear something a little bit different if I'm going to knock shit around. And how cool is that? This is actually Timascus, but Timascus and Mokuti are pretty much the same thing anyway. So, yeah. So I have a certain love for that, and it was serendipity. It really was. So anyway, I want to end it here, but I wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to see this up close and personal. And if you liked the detail and workmanship that you had seen in that little cohort, but went, well, I'm not a standard folder guy, or I'm not a, 3.25 inch blade kind of guy. If only he made a larger knife that was a flipper. That was why I had to make sure that you saw this. I've had this for a few weeks. I've had this for a few months. I apologize I didn't get to them sooner, but I wanted to wait till this one came in before I did the video on these anyway. Good Lord. Good Lord. This is a knife that definitely makes me happy in my pants. Very, very happy in my pants. There are times I can't stand up in public just because I'm thinking about this knife in my pocket. And that's a good thing. Oh. Alright guys, with that, I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'm going to do my best to get another video cranked out as quickly as possible.